So the switch it is a very fundamental trick in the world of free skating. It can either be used to switch back to your original position after doing another trick that switches your skates, or it can just be a trick on its own. In this video, I'm going to be giving you all of my tips for the switch it on Freeskates, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to do it, or at the very least, practice the trick on your own. Alright, so this first step is going to sound obvious, but it's worth mentioning. You want the skates to be separated so that they don't hit each other when you do your switch it. And also keep the trucks parallel. So not the decks, but the trucks. I like to think of this as giving each skate its own lane to travel in. So ideally, when you do a switch it, they stay equidistant the whole time. So you don't want one of your skates to be tilted like this or something, because then it'll just run away from you. You want the trucks to be parallel and in their own lane, and also not too far separated. You want the skates to be closer together, both in this way as well as this way, so that it's easier on yourself. Now it's time to move on to actually executing the trick. And after talking to Jeff and some other free skaters, we found that there are two methods to the switch it. One of which is throwing the back skate and the front skate simultaneously at the same time and catching them together. That's method one. Method number two is doing them at separate times. So you're throwing the back skate, jumping off of the front skate, and then catching. For me, when I was practicing, I found that the method of just chucking them resulted in landing in between the skates with them shooting in opposite directions. This was just too fast for me to think about what was going on. Method number two made it easier to understand the trick and what's happening. So for method number two, what you want to do is only throw your back skate so that when it reaches the other side, you kind of just jump to it. So in slow motion, it kind of looks like this, but I wouldn't move on to doing this just yet. I would actually recommend only using one skate. So practice throwing your back skate only with your other foot on the ground, and practice throwing and then jumping. Throwing and then jumping to catch. Do this over and over again. Ideally, your upper body doesn't move at all when you're doing this. Keep it centered and let your foot and your skate do all the work. When you're doing this, make sure you keep the skate flat so that it doesn't tilt and do some sort of weird throw when you're doing the switch it. And then you can move on to only using your front skate. So ditch the back skate, keep your back foot on the ground, put your front foot on the skate, try and throw that front skate behind you. If you're doing this in the order which you're doing the trick, ideally you want to lift your back foot first and then try and throw it if you want this to feel like you're actually doing the trick. So the idea is to practice the back foot and get that down so it feels natural, and then also practice only the front foot so that when you put this together, it can be a bit more approachable. So once you've practiced this one skate at a time, it's time to get on the skates and give it a shot. One pro tip I got from Matty Tice is to focus on the skate that's behind you, the blind one, because you're probably gonna land the skate that you're throwing in front of you because you can see it. So once you have that muscle memory down of just catching the back skate, focus on catching the front skate with your back foot. For me, this was the hardest part of the trick to land. It was a bit difficult to think of this as throwing the front skate backward because it's in the opposite direction of motion and that just feels weird. So the way I like to think of this is tossing the back skate lightly, and while that's happening, try and stop your front skate rather than throwing it. Just slow it down a little bit so that it slows down just enough to reach your back skate. The reason I'm telling you to do this second method where you throw the skates at different times is it's easier to see what's happening in your head. Once you get used to this and this becomes muscle memory, you can do what Jeff likes to do, which is just chuck them both lightly, throwing them at the exact same time, landing them at the exact same time, and maybe that method works for you. So once you get comfortable, go ahead and try throwing them at the same time and see if that works for you. It's also worth noting that there are 4 ways to do the switch it in the step-by-step method. For most people, learning only one of these methods is going to do the trick. It's going to be the throwing the back skate, jumping off the front skate, and catching. But if you want to learn all 4, honestly, it's only going to make you more comfortable on the skates, and it's a fun little challenge to see if you can land all 4 of them. Another thing to mention about the switch it is you might be thinking, well, what happens now because my feet are on the wrong skates? As long as the trucks are in the correct orientation under your feet, it doesn't matter what the shape is. So as long as you keep the trucks parallel and your feet pointed outward, you're gonna land on the skates correctly. Just note that once they're on the wrong feet, they're gonna have to point diagonally, kind of like this. We have a fun video talking all about this called Your Free Skates Are Lying to You. If you haven't seen that, I'd recommend checking it out. So those are my tips for the switch it. I hope this video helped you. If it did, please feel free to leave a like, as well as a comment if you're struggling or have any more questions. Thanks so much for watching. Roll with us.